so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning your beautiful brainwaves into another episode of the Positive Head Podcast, where we are firmly convinced that creating success and happiness is rooted in understanding the ultimate nature of reality and the fact that as human beings, we are all immensely powerful fractals of the one and only source consciousness, which creates and animates all things. Now, of course, understanding this powerful truth is one thing. Applying this incredibly empowering wisdom to everyday life, well, that's another, which is exactly why we provide you with a fresh serving of soul food for thought 5 days a week to help constantly remind you of what matters most. You are it. And I'm your host, Brandon Beecham. I'm the reflection and extension of you who will be here each Wednesday interviewing a different consciousness changemaker. And on the other 4 weekdays, leading the way to ensure that your perspective is consistently expanded, your vibration is constantly elevated, and your heart is overflowing and full. Also, before we jump into today's episode, I'd like to take about a minute and a half to tell you about a few sponsors that not only help to make it possible to produce this show 5 days a week, but that I'm also genuinely passionate about promoting. The first longtime stellar supporter of the show that I want to mention is Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online with over 8,000 video titles. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. The second sponsor I'm sincerely passionate about promoting is Purium. It's no mystery that bringing your mind, body, and spirit into balance is necessary if a person truly intends to manifest the greatest and grandest version of themselves. So if you've been looking for a way to easily get organic superfoods into your system every day with a simple plan that can help you reestablish a healthier foundation and relationship with food, like I was doing before I found Purium, I highly recommend going to positivehead.com/transformation and checking out the videos and interviews there where I dive deeply into discussions explaining why I take these products every day. And should you ultimately end up on iShopPurium.com to purchase any of their 50 plus amazing superfood products, be sure to use the code POSITIVEHEAD, all one word, for a 25% discount. All right, all you positive heads, on this week's Soul Share episode, I am very excited to have Summer McStravick here with me on the show. Summer is a podcaster, author, former radio co-host with one of my favorite all-time teachers, Dr. Wayne Dyer. And she was the former director of new media at Hay House, where she captained the ship, helping to build essentially the world's largest live radio, webinar, and podcast network at the time. Summer, welcome to the show. Could you please do more things, though?
Hi, Brandon. It's so good to be here. Oh, man, I can't stop doing things. Are you kidding me? That's my life.
On your soul contract,
what more can I do?
Doing all the things.
Get them all in as fast as you can and as much as you can. Pretty much, yeah. That's my history since I was a little kid.
That's a pretty great history. Well, speaking of that, I want to get a little bit of backstory on you. That's something that I almost always start at the top, just getting backstory. But even before that, I have sort of a few predictable opening questions and then a standard outro question. And so my first intro question is typically this: you're in an elevator, the woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
The elevator question, that is the one question I've absolutely always sucked at.
So we're going to practice.
So I will give it a go. But caveat, practice on everyone listening. Thank you, guys. What do? You know, I'm a maker of things. I make stuff. I create things and I teach people how to make things both using physical means and non-physical means. this for me kind of put me in the world of, well, it's Flowdreaming. That is my main thing. But it really came out of this desire to figure out, how do I more effectively get things done in my life and in this world? And how come some of the things I'm trying to make don't get made, don't happen? And why do some things that I never think will happen end up occurring?
Right.
What is going on? So that was the big rabbit hole that I kind of went down early on in my life. God, at least 20 years ago. My goodness, I feel old. And I came up from that. Yeah. Having created a lot of different stuff from, like you mentioned, working at Hay House for a decade, and then writing books there, co-hosting with Wayne there, coming out of it, starting my own company, Flowdreaming, teaching people, developing this modality, and still have places to go, still have the next thing. So to the elevator lady, do you want to change your life? Do you want to change your thinking? Do you want to be happier? Do you want to feel like back in power again? Are you at that point where you're asking yourself, what does any of this mean or matter? And I've done all the things you're supposed to do. What else is there? And what don't I know yet? Those are all questions that, plague me, basically. And I come up with answers for as I work through them, both physically and, like I said, non-physically.
Well, that was Willy
Wonka's.
That was Willy Wonka's elevator ride, like into the stratosphere. But
that's a C plus, man. It's not quite an A yet. It's a C plus.
Actually,
I'm working on it.
It was above all. It broke the meter of goodness. You took us to the stratosphere, and I'm okay with that. That was awesome. So why don't we do this? Tell us a little bit of how you ended up on this path. Who is Summer McStravick? What's the backstory?
Okay. So that's like a full 2-hour story.
Good. We have 3.
Yeah, we could do the whole time. All right. You guys have some time out there? No, I'll condense it. So I know that you interviewed my mom a while back, Venus Andrecht.
She's so great too.
Funny. Yes. So that's who I come from. And she's wild and wacky and crazy. I actually come from a very long line of intuitives, people who've worked with energy. I'm the first daughter of the first daughter of the first daughter of the first daughter. And it goes on for at least 5 generations, if not more, which they tell me in Ireland is very special. I didn't know until I went there.
First daughter?
And they said,
Well, first, let me throw this out. If you guys want to hear Venus, her mother's, this is going back. We're around episode 80 something probably now, somewhere around there. This is episode 196 with your mother. So first, I just want to throw that out there. You guys, I love her mother. It was such a great conversation. And so go back and check that out. But also, what do you mean by the first daughter of the first daughter? What and that's rare.
I only mention it because I think it's kind of wacky and funny. So basically, I'm the firstborn and I'm a girl. And my mom is the firstborn and a girl. And her mom was the firstborn and a girl. And her mom was the firstborn and a girl.
Oh, cool.
And we're talking families of 8 and 10. I mean, we had big families back then, right? So it's a direct lineage. It's not like I am the firstborn of the thirdborn daughter. It's the first. Which is, I don't know. It's just kind of it just makes you wonder that whole Star Trek, what's in your, your
it's
genetic.
Like my birthday synchronicity.
What do they call that? The mitochondria. That's right. So maybe there's something.
That's something
there.
interesting. Yeah,
I don't know.
That's very similar to, I have a birthday synchronicity like that where it's, my dad's birthday and his grandmother's, and my great grandmother died on that day. And there's about 15 more minutes to the story of like partners I met on that day, and suicides on that day tied to me, all kinds of like crazy. It's like a long story. I won't go into it. The listeners have heard it like a dozen times. So,
Potent Numbers Day. Well, that's a great example of a pattern that keeps erupting over and over again. And we'll talk about patterns later. I love patterns. So, So for me, it's only interesting because I kind of wanted to escape all of that originally. And I forgot what your question was already.
Your backstory.
But, my backstory. So my goal was basically to go to college and get a good degree and go into publishing and do literary stuff in life and not do any of that crazy woo-woo, at all. So it's the whole what family ties kind of Michael J. Fox syndrome. That's my era. Right. That was me.
Gotcha.
And I'm going to condense a whole lot of things, but the literary career I was pining for ended up leading me straight into Hay House. And I didn't even know at the time that what Hay House was or who they were. I was so like, no, I could tell you all about Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, but I can't tell you a thing about Louise Hay because I don't want to know that. That's my family.
Right. You like resisted it a
looking
little
back, yeah. And looking back, what I realize is, life and whatever you want to call it, soul contract or God or source or universal consciousness, you're always being set up for the thing that you have chosen to explore, whether you resist it or want it or whatever it may be. And life is going to invest inside of you the perfect capabilities to do that, whether you, again, accept them or deny them. So half of our lives we spend often denying parts of ourselves. We finally accept those parts of ourselves, and then we get into the real work. And that's what ended up basically happening to me. I never sought to work with visionaries and luminaries and basically have this master's level, PhD level training that I received, that I was paid to receive, essentially. I didn't see it even then. I just thought, well, I'm just doing a role. It's sort of in publishing, but really it's about how to take people's amazing ideas, these incredible visionaries. And what else do you call, someone like Wayne?
Yeah.
And, figure out how do they get it? How do we get these into the world?
Right.
How do we make it so people hear it and receive it? How do we reach more people? How do we express this? How do we grow this? And I was learning all of that. And eventually all things come around full circle. And I realized, because I have something to say too. And that was even a bigger barrier for me. No, you don't have anything to say. You're good at helping other people say, no, you've been trained. You have something to say. And even that had to sneak up on me. Flowdreaming was never something that I pitched or promoted or pined for or yearned for. It was literally me standing in the warehouse with a bunch of other employees at lunch hour and saying to them, okay, you guys, you want to make something? What do you guys want? And they all said, we want to win the lottery. I'm like, come on, you can't all win the lottery. They're like, well, we're going to flow dream with you. And this is the warehouse at Hay House, on a regular work day afternoon. And I said, well, why don't we all just instead, move in this other direction where we just explore what would make us feel incredibly happy. And from that point, it's just like everything I did, it just kept springing out of my hands, basically provoking me, to take things to the next level, taunting me. Are you big enough for this? Are you big enough for this? Until, I finally capitulated. I had a long conversation with energies in the bathroom at my house one day. And it was put to me that, look, if you don't do this work, we have wasted so much on you. We've given you intuition. We've given you business skills. We've given you literary skills. We've positioned you with a great company and all this extra teaching.
Wow.
And you're going to, what? Not do this? Because what?
You're scared?
You don't think you can?
Right.
You're scared? What's going on? And I realized, okay, if I can't do it for me, then I'm going to do it for the investment that y'all have made in me.
Oh, wow.
And once I made that turning corner, turning corner doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying. It makes
sense. I knew exactly what you meant.
Once I turned that corner, that's kind of what put me on the mission that I'm on today. And sometimes I'm still reluctant. I'm like, gosh, there's not one more person I want to teach. Another part of me says, you have this thing to teach. It's still not old. There's still not enough people who haven't heard this yet. So keep going. And does that kind of bring me up till today? I'm trying to tell the story in a way that I haven't ever told it before. I don't know if it's working.
I think you told that story very, very well. And I have some insight. Oh,
you're such a sweetheart.
I have some insight into the journey. And, it made me think a little bit of my own son who, he just he's 20. And he has sort of been raised around me. And I'd imagine I definitely really enjoyed connecting with your mother because she's got sort of that carefree, quirkiness that I can relate to. And I've always sort of been that character in my own way, I suppose. And so that's what my son's been raised around is me talking about all this like spiritual stuff and, living a pretty unconventional life with my bandmates when he was younger and, all kind, just unconventional. So he really tried to resist. He was like, well, I got to rebel against my dad. Meanwhile, what I do, I just bring all these like amazing, super cool people around him. And he's like, oh, I've got to rebel against this somehow. But meanwhile,
I'm going out.
it's so hard because I'm like, yeah, you can try and rebel, but I'm pretty much doing and hanging out in the circle of the coolest people on the planet. So good luck. Yeah. And so now he's finally come back around and, and he's just like, and he never really resisted that hard. But now he just like can't read enough. He can't, he's so into it. And he's just like, there's no resisting. Like,
it's true. We are all born into the exact milieu, the circumstances that we require for whatever it is that we are deciding we're going to explore. And I hate to even use words like accomplish or achieve or grow into, or, I don't like looking at growth like some sort of ladder that has to be climbed, or,
right.
tests
Like it's
that have
better,
to be
like one rung
passed.
is better than the other.
Yeah. So I'm just like, okay, what did I come here to explore? Obviously this, and you as well. And everyone, you came to explore something. And I know some people are scratching their heads. They're like, really? You're exploring some really crummy stuff right now. That's true.
Well, I think most of the listeners are on a similar path of exploration to us, and if not, they're just opening up to that part of themselves, or they probably would be tuning into something else.
Yes, exactly.
But well, so this is fascinating to me. It's coming up on my 4-year anniversary of this podcast, and Flowdreaming, not only the book, but the podcast, the same name, 14 years. That is like, and you're like the longest running show in this sort of consciousness realm, right?
I might be. I don't know. I may be, actually. I should really look into that. So, I started the program Flowdreaming back in 2005. And let me tell you, the internet was a very different place. It was a Wild West. There was no thing as podcasting wasn't a thing. It wasn't even there yet. It was, there's radio, and you can now put radio on the internet. Have you heard of that? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How do we do that? Let's figure it out. So there was nothing to model it by. There was very little to even, you couldn't just search, how do I start an internet radio station? There were no companies doing it. There were like one or two that we consulted with, but it was all very small and very emerging. So that's the era that I began my show in. And when I started Flowdreaming, it was terrible. I was a terrible, people liked it at the time because they didn't know any better. There wasn't anything to compare it to, but I listened to those first shows. Thank you. But I was really trying to find my feet. So I started that show. I was also co-hosting with Wayne at the time. And, my job was to figure this stuff out.
So he was on Flowdreaming as well?
No, we did the Wayne Dyer show.
That was his show.
Yeah, okay, Wayne Dyer show. And then we would change the name of his show every year or two. When he would release a new book, we'd kind of like change the show branding to reflect the book, or whatever his newest teachings were, because, he didn't like anything to get old. So, so we started both of those. And eventually, of course, Wayne has passed on, but I've just kept Flowdreaming going, and I'm almost at about 600 episodes right now. And it's really just been an organic thing all of these years. I talk and I teach, and really for me, every show is about exploring a different facet of energy, a different facet of what happens if we think differently about this? What happens if we apply energy or emotional principles to this? What happens if we stand in our power in this area? So I've just gone all over the board, all over the gamut, exploring just thing after thing, whatever strikes my fancy, I explore. And so that's how I've ended up, 14 years later with this show. So go listen to it. There's an app for it too. You can download, which is nice. You can carry it around and listen that way.
Oh, cool. Very, very cool. So I'd love to hear from you what exactly, you gave us a little insight with what happened with the lottery, the wannabe lottery winners. What is, define for everyone, if you would, sort of the Flowdreaming process, and everything about it, if you would.
Yeah, I expect at this point they're still like, who is this woman? What is she actually doing?
I think we're getting more and more of an idea every minute.
Interesting story, but what? Yeah, okay. So basically what ended up happening is, we're in this kind of era, and we're looking here at the, the 90s and the early 2000s. The Secret has not been filmed yet. Jerry and Esther Hicks are still traveling around in hotels with their cassette tapes, with their hand lettered hand typed, printing on the front of them, which I have, by the way.
Oh, wow.
Yes, when I saw them in a very small courtyard and bought their handmade cassettes.
That's so great.
This is, back in this time. And I was saying at one point, oddly enough, with my mom, I had, I was, like I said, I was trying to go into publishing, and I had started a literary magazine, and it was failing terribly because I was only like 20 something and I had no idea what I was doing, but I knew I had to do something, because I have to make things, right? That's what I do. And I'm going to take chances, and I didn't want to work for anybody else. I wanted to make things. Mm-hmm. So I knew how to do graphic design, and I knew how to do editing, and put this magazine out. And I remember calling my mom in tears and just saying, this thing is flopping. I can't get advertisers. No one is, I don't have revenue coming in. What do I do? And I said, let's just manifest this. Let's just make it happen. Well, do you want to try affirmations? Not really. Sorry, Louise. Do you want to try a visualization? Yeah, I guess we could try that. I don't know. Trying to draw from all the tools that were kind of out there at the time. And so we'd get on the phone together, and we were like diet buddies, but we would do, manifesting together essentially. And one of these days, and actually I put this story in my first book. One of the days we were on the phone, and we were talking each other into the kind of dreams and visions, like everything's going well for you, Summer, and your magazine is taking off, and everything is so wonderful, and it's going great, and you make money. And I started to also kind of chime in. I'm really just happy, and I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And I'm feeling so satisfied. I'm actually on my life path. I know where I'm going, and I'm not scared anymore, and I'm not stressed anymore. And things are just coming together, and they're clicking for me. And I finally found my flow. I found this path of ease. It's so easy. It's like everything is just right. The synchronicities are coming together, and everything is just working. And whatever that is, I want it. I want in, give that to me. That's what I really want. And then she and I were like, what just happened there? Where did we go? I said, I don't know. I feel like I just left. I was somewhere else. I was fully in this feeling state, and I wasn't even in my body. And she said, I felt that too. We were not here. And that sent us in this state of we were just bewildered for a while. But knowing us, we're used to weird stuff, right? So we're like, okay, all right, this is next. But that was sort of the germination of the whole flow process. I got really curious after that. And I started to do a lot of research. I researched quantum mechanics. I did a lot of early reading, people like Dean Radin, as well as Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, positive psychologist. He's the father of it, basically, who invented the whole idea of what flow state is. Scientists are coming up with their breakthroughs, or, the guys in golf who are hitting the perfect stroke or whatever. He's like, they're in flow.
Right.
And I started to put all these concepts together, and I said, it's like I'm in flow state because I'm not in time. I'm not in space. I actually felt like when you're daydreaming and you forget where you are. And I thought about all those times I had driven home, and you end up in your driveway and you're like, I don't remember the last 5 stoplights. I hope to God I stopped, Right. Because you're daydreaming, right? You're somewhere else. So a part of you is still taking care of stuff. The other part of you is gone. And I realized I am in flow. That was flow, but I wasn't doing it for a scientific breakthrough or for a sport. I was actually doing it in my own heart and my spirit. I actually took that and I went into a spiritual state with it. I applied it to my spirituality, not a, more conventional thing like, psychologists want to apply it to. I thought, this is really interesting. This has really got me now. So I did a ton of research. Yeah. And I started to think, okay, the whole quantum consciousness thing, the fact that, our minds can be larger than what's just in our head. Right? You exist in a field of information that's your consciousness. It just happens to, come down into your head like a radio antenna.
Focus. Yeah. Yes. Right. Focus there.
So I started to picture my mind as kind of like this radio receiver, terrific computer processor, takes in information and receives information, synthesizes it all together so that I can be conscious and talk and decide what to do next. but there was another level, a storage bank, if you will, where I'm also putting all this information up into. And that got me really curious about dualism and, the physical and the non-physical, and how our universe is sort of built off these two polarities, everything in it, yin and yang, and up and down, and light and dark, and forward and backward, and hard and easy, and flow and not flow, or what we commonly call resistance. And resistance is where we encounter pain and suffering and all the yucky feelings. So this is the start of the journey. And from there, I just began practicing this. What does it take to get here? What happens when I'm there? And does what I'm creating when I'm in that space actually make a damn difference in my life? Right. And so I, started to take my more critical thinking background, thanks mom for letting me rebel, because now I've got that. Right. How do I take that and decide if this is really making an impact in my life? And just so many things started to come together and make sense at that point for me. And that is actually, this is where things get really funny and funky. And I know sometimes you like to hear about, tell me something really interesting and synchronistic, right? Well, I have that.
Oh yeah. That's coming.
Okay. So I have that.
All right. You can break it out now if you want.
So I fold my magazine. I'm out $30,000. And this is back in 2001. I'm in my late 20s. So that was a lot of money for me that I was now in a position.
It's like 60,000 now, probably.
Oh, easily, and my husband and I were doing this together, and it was just what are we going to do now, honey? And I sent out a little brochure in a, regular old letterhead to this company in town called Hay House. And I said, hey, if you need anybody to help you, design your books and do layout, I'm there. And it was like a cold call letter. Mm-hmm. They weren't hiring. It was just I'm just going to send this and I hope somebody there gets it. I never followed up. I never called. Yeah. I didn't do anything. I was as hiding as best as I could from all of this in the universe's eyes. Yeah. So of course they had to reach out to me and call me and bring me in and say, yeah, we'd love to have you start here. And I said, okay, well, I'm only freelance. I'm not going to work there. Such a... Mm-hmm. Yeah, can I use bad words in here?
Making your demands.
I don't know.
Yes. Use them.
I was such a B word. I was such a bitch. Yeah. So, eventually things started going really well. And the woman I was working for, such an amazing woman, she said, I'd love to hire you to be the art director and, to be the, the lead designer and this and that. And I said, no, I don't really want to work for anybody. I'd be terrible. I said, no. And I, to this day, I'm like, really? What was wrong with me? And I said to her, well, can I try for 2 weeks? And if I don't like it, I can just go back to being freelance again. And she's like, well, I guess so. Sure.
We'll try this very unconventional approach to hiring someone.
I can only imagine. She was thinking, what is wrong with this girl? What is wrong with her? So, from there, it's kind of history. I ended up staying, and it ended up becoming a really powerful decade for me. I realized that this process that I had started, like I joked about, I'd go in the warehouse where all the, books and stuff were stored, and myself and other employees, and I started sharing the technique and they were loving it. So it was really grown, kind of in-house. And I never even wanted to promote a book idea around it or even start a podcast around it. My boss at the time actually encouraged me. She said, I said, I'm not going to pitch this book to Reed. I don't know if you know Reed Tracy, he runs Hay House now. And I said, I'm not going to promote it to him. I mean, that would be embarrassing. I'm just an employee here. And she said, well, okay, I'll go sit with you while you do it. I was such a baby.
Oh. So you had great support.
You know what I'm saying when I say the universe was really kicking me? Like, come on, girl. How much do we have to do for you? How pathetic do you have to be? So,
does Reed need to come and beg you at your house?
I know. To my astonishment, he's like, yeah, I think it's a good idea. I'm hearing and feeling some positive stuff around this. And from there, it just took off like wildfire. And life, it continues to challenge me to step it up every time I want to hide and play small. And I tell this story not just for me, but I know that working with so many people over the years, this is a typical story, not necessarily the glamorous, like, woo, Hay House and all that. But the fact that you hide and then you have to come back out of it, something will keep kicking you. You don't like the thing that's kicking you. Sometimes it's a bad thing that kicks you. Sometimes it's a really good thing that kicks you. But all of us have failed at things that were wonderful because we played too small, we got scared, and we dropped it. And then we say, I sabotaged myself. Right. Or we've done the opposite, which is something bad happens to me to kick me forward. And then we say, well, why are bad things happening to me? It's the same thing. It's really, whether it's sabotage or a bad thing, your life is always strategizing to move you to that next stage of experience. Because otherwise, you're just floating kind of dead in the water. And that's probably, I think, the worst place to be. Just sitting there floating on an ocean of, I'm not really going anywhere. I'm just biding my time. Because that, I don't think that's what we came here for. I mean, this is a very precious 80, 100 years that we have. You know, if we're lucky.
Playing it safe is the most dangerous thing you can do.
You know what?
In my opinion.
I do. I totally believe that. I say that all the time. I'm like, safety is stagnation. I mean, you look at water. If it's flowing, it's moving. If it's not flowing, it's deadly. So, sorry, I just monologued a lot on you right now.
Oh, I like that.
Sorry.
No, thank you. They hear me monologue plenty. So, yeah, this is your turn. So,
well, go
sorry,
ahead.
Go ahead.
I told you we were going to do that. But this is what led me into the process of using Flowdreaming, trusting Flowdreaming, understanding this was a gift for me to share with everyone else. And it was a gift not just because it was teaching me a different way of manifesting, but it was also, you know, helping me understand that we don't all do it the same way. You know, at the time it was about meditation and mindfulness. And I was always saying, I can't meditate. You know, I have, eventually I had 2 little kids, a baby, a toddler, a husband, a full-time job, a side gig called Flowdreaming. I'm like, I can't meditate. You know, my life is always like crazy around me. I said, my mind needs something else. What is that? And so for me, Flowdreaming was an alternative active process that I could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. An active meditation. And if I let go into it and I let myself daydream my way in and move into this flow state, I mean, there's like a way of doing this, but then I could be gone and I could be powerful and I could be creating, but I never had to feel like there was a 6-month learning curve where I had to go and meditate every day, you know, in an ashram or something. It was like, no, you could just drop in and start doing this. And I realized this was a technique that was built for me. And then eventually I realized it's a technique that's built for a lot of people. And so I better start telling those people so they can do it too.
Now, is this something that you sort of guide people through as well? So, like, can you drop into a flow dream exercise, you know, on the drop of a hat, like now?
Totally. You want to do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
All right. Well, now seems like a good moment to take a quick minute to tell those of you who aren't familiar a bit about our sponsor, Gaia. I've been a big fan of Gaia for many years now, which is why they're the only content provider I've ever reached out to in regards to potentially supporting this podcast. So needless to say, I'm very excited they're now supporting the show. Gaia truly is my personal go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web. They have an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. Just to give you an example, on the show Missing Links, the incredible researcher Greg Braden explores all the biggest questions concerning who we are, where we come from, where we're going, by connecting the missing links between science and spirituality to complete our understanding of humanity's history and to better understand the interconnectedness of all things. Awesome, right? And that's just one example. As you guys constantly hear me say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to go deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place I know of to do it, period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out.
So cue the nice, gentle music in the background. I'm actually going to take a little sip of water.
Okay. All right. I've got all of a sudden within the last few minutes loud rain beating on the roof in my studio. It's particularly loud with the rain, so it's kind of I like the sound. That's something that I put on for meditation sometimes, anyways, just like the sound of rain. So I've got the live and direct nature background music.
Well, you know what? That rain's heading my way. I think it's been raining off and on. Yeah, I've been hearing that too, and I love the rain. It's it's really
me too.
Flowing and cleansing and just clean.
Speaking
it cleans
of flow dreaming,
scrubs it. Yes.
Yeah. It's a perfect thing for flow, right? Water.
Yeah. So, I'll just very quickly kind of give you the 3 pillars so that people know what they're doing. Otherwise, it can be surprising. In fact, it's funny. The worst reviews I've ever had on Amazon or iTunes are from confused people, and they say, "Why is this woman so excited? This is not a meditation. Her voice is way too loud and way too excited." And I'm like, so well, great. You could have read up a little bit more on that. This is not meditation, and you are supposed to be emotional, and that's the friggin' point. So
right. That's funny. If they'd found the meditation channel, maybe they wouldn't be so reactive.
Yeah. So here's how you flow dream. First, I want you to think of when you typically find yourself in a state that's not quite fully present.
Okay.
Okay. So this is often when we daydream, like I've already mentioned. When our mind wanders, we go someplace else. People say, "Hey, where have you been? Where are you?" Daydreaming is really healthy. It's a counterpoint to nighttime dreaming. You can lucid daydream the same way that you could lucid dream at night. And the fact that there's so little exploration or study of it is just mind-boggling to me. Something we do up to 30% of our day. People just still dismiss, and they make us feel dumb, and teachers punish us in school, and it's ridiculous. So we're going to use one of the functions that I think daydreaming was built for. I'm sure it's multifunctional like most of our body's processes. But one of the functions is to kind of be like the email that is checking the server in the background. Every time you disconnect and you daydream, information is being uploaded, information is being downloaded. You don't have to know what that information is. It's just coming and going. It's sort of like this is our way to constantly connect in, which for me is a really soothing thought because it reminds me that it's not something I have to try to do, that my body was built in to have this connectivity to non-physical all the time.
Love that.
So we're going to come up with a daydream. And at first you're going to realize I'm thinking these things. I don't feel any different. I'm just pretending that I'm imagining things, which is how daydreams often always start. At a certain point, though, you start to have that lack of self-consciousness. That part of your mind quiets down because you're keeping it busy. You're throwing a bone for a dog and your mind is the dog. And the dog is very happy and it wants to run and chase it. It's so happy you're giving it something to do that it can be useful. You're saying, see these things. Feel these things, especially feel these things. I don't want you to think right now. I want you to feel this. So feeling, I call the universal language. It's the one language that we all share over the entire earth. No matter what culture you come from, what tiny little indigenous tribe or huge, mega, civilization. You can see if someone is sad. You can feel it. You can feel it with animals. You can tell if an animal is unhappy or in pain. You feel their emotion. It transmits. So it's the most basic form of communication that we understand and know. So this is what we use when we're in flow, because the idea is your emotional self is what you're actually always trying to get satisfied in life. It's not really your physical self. Physical self wants things really just to please your emotional self. You want to have a nice meal, not just to make your body full, but so that you won't feel pain or hunger, right? You want to fall in love, not just to have a partner around you, but because your heart wants to be happy. So just about every choice we make in life is fulfilling some emotional endpoint, as I call it. So
interesting.
Understanding this, if you go into flow and you're focusing on, well, what are my emotional endpoints? And can I let life arrange the circumstances to reach me to that endpoint? Now you're starting to get into kind of the flow philosophy, which incidentally, I said we were going to flow dream, but now there's this huge backstory. I'm so sorry.
Which is great. No, it's perfect.
Okay. But this takes
Don't
me
be
right
sorry.
back to when I was telling you about that magazine that folded, right? The emotional endpoint I was actually going for was, I want to find my path. You know, I'm in my late 20s. I need to know where I'm going, and I want to be happy, and I want to make money, and I want to make a difference, and I want it to be meaningful. And, you know, I had all these feelings, and they were feelings that I wanted. And the path there was kind of irrelevant. So of course, my flow, my life, my future, my greater self had no choice but to just shut down what I was doing, because it wasn't going to get me there. It was not in my flow. There was something else that was much more in tune with those emotional endpoints, and it promptly slapped me onto that path. Thank God.
Right.
Thank God. So that's another aspect of flow dreaming. You can have an idea of what you want, but I always want you to have the idea of what's the emotions that you're getting from that in the end. Yep. You know, whether it's a new job, you want a new job because your current job is frustrating you and it's, you know, not paying you. What's the emotion you want from that job? Well, I want to feel appreciated. I don't want to feel stressed out anymore from driving. I want to feel lots of security. Great. So if your life and your future could give you any job that would fulfill those three, would you really care what it was? If it made you happy, it made you money, you didn't have to drive? Like, well, yeah. And the key there is if it made you happy. And we usually have all these ideas like what will make us happy. And so we narrow all of our options down. But if you just go for happy, then your options open way, way, way up. So you've got guided daydreaming. You've got emotion. The third pillar is flow itself, right? And that is the state that we were talking about, that bridge state where we move from physical to non-physical. Because I've always been a bit of a heretic, you know, and you know, in the non-physical or non-physical community. I'm probably a heretic there too. But in the metaphysical, the new age, the whatever you want to call it community, there's a lot of things I've always taken issue with. And so for me, flow is this way of saying, hey, I'm simultaneously physical and non-physical, and both of them are 50-50 in control of me. So I better as heck figure out what the 50% that's non-physical is wanting and doing and creating. I better be talking to it. And not only that, but I don't have to get into some weird altered state or, you know, full on channeling or astral projecting or anything, right? It's got to be built into me already from the get-go, right? If I was a smart creator, I'd be like, yeah, you have to have full-time access to that. You know, that's important. So I believe we do. And so flow state is what I call our access to that. And that's your email, check in the server. What information do you have for me and what can I send out? So you're going to pull information out of flow and you're going to push information into flow. When you push the information in, you're co-creating, you're manifesting, your law of attracting, whatever you want to call it. You pull information out of flow, you're receiving, and you're being empathic, and you're being intuitive, and you're being psychic, and you're reading the energy. You're just pulling information out. So I look at the world like, okay, this makes sense. You know, the whole framework is fitting together. So now you and I are going to move into this flow state, and I'll talk you into it. And by talking you in, I'm just helping you get there by taking a little of the burden off of you. You don't have to think about what you're going to see. I'm going to tell you what to see. You don't have to think about what you're going to feel. I'll just tell you how you're going to feel.
Wonderful.
And that's what I do in my flow dreams that I've recorded that I put at my shop. You know, I kind of take, you know, it's like, you know, having a little extra help, right? But in reality, you can flow dream all by yourself. You don't need anybody else guiding you as long as you can follow these, parameters and kind of get into that state. Okay.
Perfect.
Long lead up. Thank you for letting me give a nice, thorough explanation.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
Okay, Brandon. So let's do this. So what's happening is I'm closing my eyes, doing some deep breathing. I breathe because it's good to not let tension be in your body. You want your body to relax, you know, and just kind of fade and settle. You want to be thinking about anything, aches and pains or anything going on in your body. You just want to let it go. So I relax my shoulders and I release my stomach. I'll roll my neck and wiggle my jaw a little bit and relax my forehead. And I just let go. And then I'll let my body kind of sway back and forth a little bit, rock back and forth. Think about every mother in the world who's rocked her baby back and forth in a rocking chair. There's something soothing, something releasing, something connecting about that back and forth, physical, non-physical, up and down, all the polarities, back and forth. You're a little piece of seaweed at the bottom of a beautiful blue tropical sea. And the current is just moving you back and forth. Now you sit at the edge of that sea, and your toes are in the sand, beautiful white, sugary sand. And the energy is rolling up on the shore. It's tickling your toes. And then it's receding back into the energy again. And then up on the shore it comes. The wave coming in and the wave going out. And it comes in and it goes out. And you're starting to see this in and out feeling, this back and forth feeling, this dynamic of physical and non-physical, this beautiful balance. The flow of life coming in, exciting, making things, creating, and then life flowing back out again. Reflective, retrospective, and you can look at all the experiences and all the pretty little shells in the sand where the tide, the wave has gone back in. And this is your life. Ebb and flow. Creation, destruction, creation, destruction. And you don't need to resist any of it. You don't need to fight any of it. You don't need to brace for any of it. It's always coming and going. And it's always changing. And you are always moving forward as a result. You see yourself now on the side of this beach. You're walking in the sand, your pant legs are rolled up. And it's like someone has drawn a long line ahead of you, like a child dragging a stick. This line feels so natural to follow. It just feels like you, it feels like your life, like your destiny, like where you're supposed to go next. If everything in the world was going completely right for you, if everything in the universe was completely on your side, giving to you, offering to you, nurturing you, cradling you, this is what you would feel. You would feel this ease. You'd feel drawn into your future, drawn into your next steps. And you realize as you walk forward, you glide forward, it's without effort. The same way you wake every day, and there's no fighting to wake. There's no fighting for the next day to happen or hoping or wishing. It's just there for you. It's a gift. It's such a gift. You take it for granted. You just expect it. It's easy. It was already made for you, done for you. It's a blank canvas being gifted to you every single day, saying, we believe in you so much. All that we ask of you is to paint something beautiful on it this day. And if you can't paint something beautiful, paint something that doesn't feel as good. And we'll work through that until you can paint something beautiful. Paint anything and everything that you are until we get to the next place and the next place and the next place, because we're going to keep gifting you these days, these hours, these experiences. We're going to gift you people, relationships. We're going to gift you things. We're going to gift you feelings, love, hate, fear, joy. We're going to gift you all of them. What are you going to make? Where are you going with this? And you can feel inside of you, there are parts of you that say, well, I don't know what I can make, if I'm good enough, if all of that. And you realize even as you say those are shallow fears. Fears everyone has. When you were gifted all of this, these fears were not part of the gifts. The fears are the things that you were meant to move through, create through, discover through. And still you're walking on the beach, you're gliding on the beach. You feel more and more drawn. Your future, your days, your hours, as they unfurl in front of you these blank canvases, one after another. What can we give to you? How can we help you? How can we make this better for you? Will you listen? Will you talk to us? Will you give us some guidance? Will you let us know what you really want? Because what we feel from you so much is fear. And you're scared. And you can't, and all the reasons why you can't. And if that's what you're saying to us, we have no choice but to give that back to you, because we give you what you ask for. And every day you're saying, I can't, so we have to give you more of I can't. And then you say, well, not now, maybe in a year or two when I'm ready. And they say, okay, we can only give to you in a year or two when you're ready. But every year you keep saying that. We're giving you exactly what you're asking for, everything. But we're also nudging you and pushing you. Ask for more, be in your flow. We have you. When are you going to let go into that? When are you going to be fearless and powerful and create? And you start to recognize, I need to do more creating. I need to ask more and feel more. What is it that I really want to feel? If I could feel anything, have anything, be anything, do anything, what is the one feeling I could have in my life right now that would change everything, that would just turn everything upside down and inside out? Is it security? Do I just really need that? Have I been pursuing that my whole life? Safety? If I had that, then what? Maybe that's the feeling, or maybe it's love. I don't need safety or security. I'm fine. I love flowing with things. I just need to know that I count, that I matter, that someone sees it, that they love me, that I'm lovable, that I'm valuable. I have love. I love myself, and someone loves me. If I had that, everything would turn inside out and be different. All my choices would flow out from that. It would be a different life. What's the feeling you want? This is what you make right now, right here. Make it before you have it. How else will the universe know what you want? Have it now. Feel it. Be it. Show it. You're a beacon. Broadcast it larger and bigger. It spreads out of you. It comes out of your skin. It glows out of you. It flies through the ethers. It flies through life. It flies through the beach. It flies up into the stars. You have all permission in all the universes to ask for this. It is yours. You can choose to grow into it, and it won't be withheld from you. You feel that. You know that. And you are that. And that is the feeling. You stay in, and you hold. Even now, come back from flow. You open your eyes.
Well, that was wonderful.
Thank you. I have no idea how long we were gone for. I just realized finally I probably should bring this back.
That was, I could have stayed there. You're like so perfect at that. Like your voice, your intonation, your delivery. So amazing. I know everyone out there listening is feeling as amazing as I am. So that was unexpected and just such a wonderful addition to this conversation. Thank you.
You're welcome. You know, I know. Sometimes it takes a minute or two, and you know, for most people, if it's their first time doing it, they'll be distracted. You know, they kind of keep getting pulled back into themselves. They get knocked out of their daydream over and over. But if there were even like a few minutes or 30 seconds where you just forgot everything and you were just there in that space, you actually achieved flow. You achieved flow. And it's a real thing. I've actually had a wonderful man who works for NASA. He and his wife have a neurological kind of side gig going on where they map brain waves, and it's pretty cool. And I had them actually do that with me when I was in flow state. And I have a printout of it. And what ends up happening is your brain waves all synchronize. They all get into the exact same pattern, the exact same formation. And then there's this one lower wave that almost never gets activated in people. I believe it's the gamma wave. It could be wrong. And it too actually starts to lift and expand. And they were quite impressed about that, I have to say. Meanwhile, I'm saying, what is this? I'd love to research this more. Yeah. I wish I had more evidence. But I do know that,
awesome.
it's different than self-hypnosis. It's not, because you're really you're guiding yourself in these feelings. And, just like what I did, none of that is scripted. I had no idea what we were going to go or see or even talk about there. Mm-hmm. I just kind of open up and I feel you, and I just connect in, this field of information we can all connect into. And I've done it so much. It's very easy, and it's easy. It could be easy it's easy for anybody. I don't think it's a specialty thing. So that, my dear, is flow.
We can all shoot a basket. Not all of us were born to be LeBron James, and and we can all get better at shooting a basket if we practice. And you've done a lot of practicing, and so your freestyle flow is right up there with the best hip hop artist of all time.
You're such a sweetheart. Yeah. Well,
so good, good. Okay. So I'd like to switch gears a little bit, and something that I'm curious about. I absolutely love Wayne Dyer. And one of the greatest compliments I ever received actually was, I want to say, are you familiar with the Psychic Teachers podcast?
No, I'm not.
Or the Psychic Teachers. Oh, they're so great. Two wonderful women, two wonderful women who actually, one of them, it sort of reminds me of your mother a little, and just really, really great. And one of the greatest compliments I remembered receiving on doing the show the last few years is from one of the women on that show saying, "Oh, you're sort of like a Wayne Dyer kind of I forget how she put it,
but funnier,
a current Wayne Dyer." Yeah. So however she put it, and I remember her giving me that comment, and to me that was like a huge compliment, because I absolutely love Wayne, and of course never had the opportunity to meet him, much less work so closely with him like you did. So I'm curious what that was like, and sort of maybe any fun stories or insights around Wayne that
into
you care
that
to share.
time together. Well, it's funny because one of his daughters is named Summer, so people were always confusing. Like, are you his daughter? Like, no, I'm not. I'm so sorry to disappoint. But he really brought that that sense of, look, you either like it or you don't like it. You like what I say or you don't. I'm not going to sell you on anything. This is it. If it resonates, it resonates. If it doesn't, I don't care. And I mean that in the very best possible way. It means, he'd kind of gotten over himself in terms of, do they like me? Do they want me? Which is a big stopper for a lot of us in our lives. That self-awareness gets in our way. He would literally be swimming in the ocean in Hawaii, and he would come out of the water and he would trudge up to his house, and I would be freaking out because we had to be on air in 5 minutes. Where's Wayne? Where's Wayne? Where's Wayne? Where's Wayne? This is live. This is live. 2 minutes before he'd show up and he's like, yeah, I'm not dry yet. Can you just talk for a minute while I get dried off? And I'd say, okay, I'll do my best. But that was his feeling. So like, if people want to talk to me, I'm going to talk with them. And, I'm not going to make a big thing like, it's like he didn't need to be so prepared. He just spoke from the heart, and he spoke what he knew, and he spoke what he had learned about, and he spoke what he studied about, and he was always studying. And, one of the things he would do is he'd get really, enamored of, certain masters. And then he would think, how do I write this or explain this in a way that people will understand now? So he would sort of filter it through his Wayne lens, and it worked. It's exactly what connected. So, that's kind of, I think, what I remember most. But I mean, and obviously I know it's kind of funny that mostly what I remember is freaking out like 2 minutes before every show, but I did that literally every week for like 5 years. So,
well, it's a great example though of what you just were talking about, which is he was so in the flow and was so sort of, trusting that what should come through would come through. And, it's the same thing you and I even talked about, I think, a little bit before we turned on the microphone, recording it, the fact, and a lot of times other podcasters are like, Brandon, how have you done so many episodes, And it's just that. It's like just trusting enough that I can sort of turn it on and not spend hours and hours preparing, and it makes it a lot easier when the idea is like, oh, put out 5 episodes a week and maybe spend 7 hours total, if even that, because someone else runs a show on Fridays. It's like, okay, well that it sort of makes life a little bit easier in a certain sense, and it's not necessarily, like you said, is like some of the best interviews you ever did early on. You would prepare, and some of the best interviews you ever did came from sort of just never looking at your cue cards, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that actually plays a lot into what I talk a lot about today. With my students, we're always talking about, well, how can you just get over yourself? And I'll tell people that you really need to get over yourself. And I don't mean it like you're stuck up or you're, self-infatuated, or I don't mean, or conceited, or I don't mean it like that at all. I mean, you're getting in your way. Your self-awareness is ruining the gift that you should be giving out there. And my self-awareness was, I'm a literary, genius lady. And I had to just drop it and say, look, get over that. Just do what you are gifted to do. Do what other people see in you and admire. And it's funny, like, just to really switch a second here to, the topic. I work with a lot of people who are finding themselves in business and entrepreneurship. And they say, well, I think I want to be this, or I want to be that, or I'm not sure. And, my advice is always, what do other people tell you that you are a genius at? What do they value in you? What are the things that they see in you that you always get complimented for? I said, that is probably your genius. You don't need to look for it or find it or choose what to do. Other people can see it better than you can see it. Please trust them. Just trust them. You've got to trust that they see it and know it. And then accept what they see in you. Accept what they tell you about yourself. And I had to do that. And that was a big part of me just getting over myself and getting past all the things that would just prevent me from showing up, and so that circles back to the whole Wayne Dyer story. Show up, do what you do. Don't worry about it later. It's the same thing. Like, you think you said that dumb thing at the party and embarrassed yourself. Please never think about that again. Unless you have an apology to make, that's a different thing. But if it's just you being critical of you, that's a waste. Let go of it. Just don't dwell for one tiny second on it. Because every time you do that, you're actually getting in the way of giving your gifts to the world, because now it's back on you again. Make sense? Yeah.
Right. And yeah, absolutely. 100%. And, when you realize that people really don't care in the best kind of way, nearly as much as you do, right? Like, we sit here and we get, like you said, get over yourself, this self-awareness of, oh, I did this thing, and what do they think? And guess what? They're not thinking. They're not thinking about you at all. And that's a really good thing.
Or they're secretly thinking, gosh, I wish I could be like that and not worry about it so much. And I could just show up in my underpants to do the interview or whatever it is. Not saying you're in your underpants, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
I'm in my bathrobe, like I already admitted.
It's funny because a friend of mine, over the last couple of years, a good friend of mine, Gillian, always was like, Brandon, can we please do a pantsless podcast where it's everyone has to show up in their underwear? That is just like the premise. And starting from there, and she would every time I'd see her, it's like, when are we doing the pantsless podcast? So that's instantly what comes to mind.
I would be down with that. That would be funny. Because you really would be like thinking, I can't think about me. And it would even make you work harder.
Speaking of getting over yourself,
it's just get into the flow.
Yeah, we want to help you with this self-awareness.
But it's funny. I mean, I know I'm getting a little like heavier, for a moment here, but a lot of what I see happening in the world today, especially with Instagram, and I actually really love Instagram. It's one of my favorite. Oh, I'm at #summer_McStravick. I should throw that out there. But
yes, please.
I love Instagram because I like looking at pictures. I think it's kind of cool, and I enjoy the format, and it's so much simpler than Facebook. But one of the other things, one of the dark sides of it that I've noticed as I've been, getting into it more, is that it's so visual oriented that it cries out for this constant self-criticism, self-awareness. And I think it really is sort of changing the way that a lot of messages are being delivered out there, because everybody is so aware of what they look like, air quotes, look like, appear like, how does their feed look, and so forth. It's almost like we're getting back into a lot of superficiality that we had gone away from. So I don't know, just throwing that out there. It's just a recent observation.
It's definitely a thing. Yeah. It's definitely a thing that has come up a lot, and it's bubbling up to the surface for some reason in our society. I think to be, it's like a lot of things. I think they get drummed up to the point of ridiculousness. Yeah. So it's like, we've got to pay attention to this. I saw someone post the other day. It's like the other day, my friend posted something. She said, "Imagine if." Instagram went away. All of a sudden, Instagram went away. You wouldn't be a model anymore because there's all these like Instagram models, and it's like. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but at the same time, it's like for me. I share, on my Instagram, I'll share pictures of my mom and my, more like whatever. I'm going to show the real thing. It's not like the most polished, so many people, their whole thing is how do I just show the most polished side of myself and, really kind of prop myself up and show the most glamorous things. I had another friend, he used to post, he did this on Facebook, but I always thought it was so funny, and he's a funny guy anyway. He would just for the longest time, he would post like, my neighbor's taking out the garbage again. Or like just like the most mundane, uninteresting things he could post. I thought that was pretty good.
almost like a sense of irony. Like, really, if you're looking, this is what you're gonna get.
Right. Exactly.
I love it. Well, anyway. We're getting off the topic here. We're just going. We're just having a conversation. Now we're just sitting in a coffee shop.
What topic? I don't know what the topic is. I thought you were steering the ship.
No.
We're flying blind. Well, I would like to get on a little bit of a serious topic because you've been through something that's pretty intense. I remember when I had your mother on, we talked about you and we talked about your show. And I can't remember if it was during the recording when it was on or off the air, because she actually did a reading for me after the fact, and that was pretty cool. And it's been years ago now, like 3 years ago, I think she was on. So I don't quite remember if it's in the actual recording or we did it off the air. But she had mentioned that you had just would be great to come on this show, but you were battling cancer at the time. Breast cancer, I believe. And so that's, in just hearing, in connecting with you now, I was really, really glad to actually get the option to do that, because I know at the time it was like, pretty serious. And so maybe you could share a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. So when I was 43, and this was just a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, which means it's moved. It's cruising around inside of you. It's not just in your breast.
Wow.
And as you can imagine, for me, it was like, wait a second, I teach flow and I teach people how to be in a state of power and how to, get beyond fear and, how to really, really live with their emotional desires at the forefront and let those lead them, not their accomplishments, not their money, not their anything else. Because all of those things in my life until then had shown me that if I live toward my emotional ends, pretty much everything else comes along and kind of lines up and helps you out to do that. You can't be crazy happy if you're stressed out about money all the time. So if you're going for beautiful happiness in your flow and safety, probably the money thing is going to get itself straightened out and put together. Because, in flow, basically, I feel like what you are is what your life reflects around you. I mean, just what you are. So when I looked at this diagnosis, I thought, what am I? Am I breast cancer? Wait a second.
Right.
How does this fit? And, how I said, I'm kind of a rebel. I don't just like gloss things over if they don't fit and like try and like make it fit. I have to go into it. It's like either my entire worldview hangs together or it doesn't. If it doesn't, I just need to do some more exploring. Right. I mean, it means just keep looking. What you found isn't quite put together yet.
Everything.
So,
Yeah.
So I ended up looking at what is this cancer? Why me? Here I've devoted my life to really teaching people. I've gone out on a limb. I could have stayed in a much more predictable line of work, but no, I have to do this. It's just, I have to do this. And this is what I'm rewarded with. Like, what the hell, So that for me was like a real, I don't know, sort of like a turning point in my faith. And my faith is in life and flow and consciousness, this kind of understanding that everything is alive. Everything has a something in it, a template inside it that's stringing it together. And some people go into the realm of God or source or universal consciousness, whatever you end up calling it. And I thought about how I always felt that either the universe is on your side or it just doesn't care. That's kind of like the two camps that are out there. It either just flat doesn't care. You mean nothing. There is nothing. There is no sense to anything. You're just an animal and you're cruising through and you die and you're done. Yep. Or the other side of things is there's something more and you are more than your physical body. And if you just stick with that one premise, you are more than a physical body, then you can believe in all kinds of interesting things, all kinds of possibilities and religions and theories. But it boils down to that. So if I'm more than my physical body, which I'd had so many experiences in my life until then that I'd have to just negate if I didn't believe that. I mean, from being intuitive and, all these near-death experiences, all kinds of stuff. I said, okay, I know that I'm more than my physical body. So if that's the case, is the universe on my side or isn't it? Because I don't think it's fickle. I don't think sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. And I have to please it and I have to do right things for it. And I have to treat it like it's daddy. And I've got to do all the, like these, some of these weird things that we get into. Like I've got to be just right and just, pass all these tests and
Right.
I said, it either loves me unconditionally. It's either there for me. I'm an intrinsic piece and part of this, right? I am valuable because I'm an actual piece of this. And if that's the case, then everything that happens to me is important and necessary and useful for my development and my growth, even cancer. And even if I don't know why. So now instead of resisting it and fighting it and being so angry and devastated and crying my eyes out, which I admit I did for a couple of days after my diagnosis. That's when I understood, hey, it's all about how I'm going to go through this experience because I get to choose that too. I don't have to go through in despair and in fear. I can choose to go through it with feelings of curiosity, with feelings of, I need to learn from this. I want to understand why, if there is a why for me to understand. Right. And when I shifted emotionally, it made all the difference.
Wow. Yeah.
I did chemo, I did radiation, I had a mastectomy, I was rebuilt, I've had multiple surgeries, I've had a lot in the last couple of years.
Wow.
And of course, I have to mention too, I did a lot of the alternative as well. I walked the line between the two worlds of orthodox and natural. And that's a very difficult place for any cancer survivor to be in because those two places hate each other's guts.
Right.
All my friends who are in the natural remedies were just like shaking their head. How could you dare do chemo? And all the doctors that I was doing chemo with were like, you can't take any natural supplements. And I'm like, Jesus, will you guys please get it together and let me kind of walk the middle line here? I believe that a lot of things can help us. So, but that was what kind of brought me through was this feeling like I get to choose how I want to feel through this experience. And who I am in this experience is just as important as who I am in all the best experiences that I've had. And I'm not going to abandon something just because I don't understand it. This is when you really have to come in and embrace and say, look, if I'm here to grow, if I'm here as this gorgeous soul, and I've been given this gift of one day after another to explore and draw things into my life, draw awarenesses of who I am. I get to now find out who I am in something really devastating and difficult. And I'm grateful that I get to know who I am now in that place, which is a weird thing to say, but it's true.
Super inspiring. And it would make sense that, someone like yourself, you're given the opportunity to really sort of put everything to the test. Okay. Who are you when this is served up? Right. What's the status of your cancer situation now? I
actually had an MRI 2 weeks ago and I am cancer free. So I'm going into my 3rd year now. Woohoo! Cancer free. And I'm still, honestly, I am still learning how to deal with it. You know, cancer is not just the year you go through it. It's the fact now that you get to live with something hanging over you. Oh my God, I wrote a blog article about this not 2 days ago. It's called The Sword of Damocles. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a Greek myth about this man who wanted to see what it was like to be a king. And so the king said, okay, you can be a king for a day, but I'm going to hang the sword over your head. It's going to hover over your head the entire time so that you realize that you're never safe. There is always something that might happen with this great power. And I realized that, you know, when you face any kind of illness, and like I said, I mean, diabetes and heart attacks and Lyme disease, all of this, you have this sudden, like, pulling back awareness that you really do have this kind of sword hanging over your head. And if anything, it makes life sweeter and juicier. It makes you more fearless and gutsy, or it can take you in the exact opposite direction. It can make you more fearful and less gutsy. But it depends on what you're choosing to do with it. It doesn't have to happen to you. You happen to it. That's the main thing. You happen to it. So, but thank you for asking. Yeah, I am healthy. And I actually do a lot of flow dreaming around it. And in fact, I actually created a couple of flow dreams for healing from cancer that I just put out again just a few days ago. It's so funny. Haven't even really told people about them yet, but they're on my website. If anybody knows somebody going through it, it's, you know, probably one of the best gifts you can give them, aside from maybe some chicken noodle soup.
Chicken noodle soup is always at the top of the list, unless you're vegan.
Tofu noodle soup. Hey, I was even vegetarian for 24 years. And I still got breast cancer.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You know what I think of when I hear that sort of thing is one of my favorite books, and I'm not sure if you're familiar with it or not, and I've actually read it sporadically, over the last couple of years. I ended up reading the whole book just here and there. You know, you don't have to necessarily read it in order. So I would just pick a chapter, and is the book Oneness by Rasha. Are you familiar with this book?
Gosh, you know, years ago at Hay House, actually, I worked on a book called Oneness, but I forget by who it was. So I don't know if it's the same book or not.
I don't think it's the same. I don't think it's a Hay House book. I'm not 100% sure. It's channeled material, supposedly, by a woman named Rasha. She lives in India now. And I look at it as sort of like the guidebook for ascension. It's, you know, with channeled material or supposed channel material. I always am like, I don't really, whether it's channeled or not channeled is almost it's inconsequential to me. It's like, what is the material? How good is the material? And oftentimes I found people who claim to be channeling are very poetic and brilliant, and the information that's coming through, like an Esther Hicks, or in the same way I view oneness. And I sort of view it as the guidebook for ascension. Here's sort of some of the things you can expect to happen as you expand your, perspective and
your experiences.
Graduate into the next greatest and greatest version of yourself. And so what that book talks about is a lot of times with people during this sort of ascension processes is illnesses will pop up that, can really get you, like you were saying, is like, hold on, I thought I was really doing well. What's happening here?
Why am I being punished by the universe for being such a good girl?
And
that's the question.
And what... And what that book is basically saying is like, no, don't judge it. View it the same way that you're judging or looking at it. And that is, this is actually happening for me. And a lot of times it's these energies that are, over. Who knows what it's tied to as far as, we're these multidimensional beings living, on, according to that book and my beliefs. And I don't know if yours align, but, this idea that we're these multidimensional beings living parallel lives and, or past, future lives, however you want to look at it. Yeah. And it's like all of that energy is playing into your experience here too, and is connected in some way. So a lot of times as we're ascending, some of these, blockages, they come out in the form of disease or sickness or illness that don't necessarily tie to this particular even timeline or lifetime. And so you're just sort of processing and working through it. And it's actually a good thing. It's kind of like, now you're ready to get it out of your system in a certain way. And so I think that's, to me, I thought that was a really healthy way to look at, that whole process, and makes sense to me.
That reminds me of a phrase that I've forgotten until you just said that. There was a point when I was really asking, why me? Why me? And something that came through to me when I was in flow, because that's where I do my communicating, right? Was you're taking one for the team. And I thought, what the heck does that mean? Taking one for the team. And it just kind of led me on this idea of maybe it has nothing to do with how I've lived this life or who I've been or what I've done. But I'm taking one for the team, as if, reminder, Summer, there's more of you than just the you that you know. Why are you thinking so small and gazing at your little human belly button? And right. And I thought, oh, well, I would take one for the team, because that makes sense, because I'm that kind of personality in person.
Sure. And maybe you're capable of processing that energy, right? For these extensions of self, if you will.
Exactly.
I can actually, I'm capable of absorbing this and processing this, transmuting it, and maybe releasing and healing it, right?
Exactly. And that's really where I've been the last few years. I teach hundreds of students now. I have something called Me School. I don't think I've mentioned it yet.
Tell us about it.
Yeah. So Me School actually evolved from all of my learnings in flow over the last 15 years or more now. Not 20. Oh, geez, 20. Oh, gosh, I'm getting older. Okay. 20 years. Oh my God.
Where has the time gone?
My God. Yeah. So we
have eternity ahead of us, so we can relax.
So over the last 20 years, I would teach people how to flow dream, and I'd say, okay, go to my website, get my flow dream, start learning how to do this. And, still they were like, but can you teach me? Can you walk me through? Can you help me learn more? So I ended up turning it into a program, basically. It's a year-long program. And now people come in, and I tell everybody, come to me as you are and let me know how you want to feel. 1 year from now, if everything went completely right in your life, how would you feel? What would be different? Everything went completely right. And we use that as kind of our bar. How close to that mark can we get? And even more importantly, if you don't get close to that mark, I want to see where you stop. I want to see where you bump your head and you say, that's too hard, or that hurts, or I can't think higher than that. And that's what people really come to Me School for, because they want to know, where is my block? Where is the pattern? Where is the thing that I cannot see? Can you show it to me? And so I've created all of these techniques and processes, a lot of which are done through flow, to help people see that. And so, having done that now with hundreds and hundreds of students, it's been a real learning experience for me too. Everyone teaches because they're also learning. So, what I've ended up seeing is all of these patterns that are so similar across the board in so many of us. And we all think we're very unique in the one that we have. And I go, no, you've got this one. Here it is. You and, 50 million other people. And this is the one that's going to graduate you from second grade to third grade. And this is, is why right now you're bumping your head on it. You've grown, you're a little Alice in Wonderland, and you're hitting your head on the ceiling because you've grown. It's a great thing. I'm so happy you're experiencing this. And of course they're like, you're insane, Summer. I'm like, not really, but stay with me. So we move through that, just the same way that, I've had this experience of moving through cancer. It's me hitting my head on the ceiling. It's me hitting a point where I'm frustrated, saying, why and how come? And this hurts and this is bad. And all the things that I'll throw at it, just whereas somebody else might be throwing that at, why did my husband leave? And why did I get fired? And why did I develop Lyme disease? And why did I, it's like we all have a thing, but ultimately the thing becomes irrelevant once you see the pattern that we all share behind these things. And so what we're learning how to do is work with those patterns behind the things, working with who we are inside of those things. You figure that out, and the issue, the thing, the tragedy doesn't bother you again. Right. Or it scales down. Let's put it that way. Like, I still go through fears, but not like I used to. every year they're a little bit less. And that's what I teach to everybody. One of the biggest problems I realized early on with teaching people how to co-create and manifest, I'm like, here are the keys to the kingdom. I mean, really, with this, you can do anything.
Yeah.
And people would only use them. It's like you could have a Ferrari and they're like, no, I'm just going to go get a little Camry with these. And I'd say, what's wrong with you? They're like, well, I can't even conceive of really owning a Ferrari. I mean, it's too big for me. Where would I put it? And how could I afford it? And I'm like, okay, so I'm giving people all of these amazing secrets and means and ways of creating anything, but they will only create the limit of their own comfort zone. And for most of us, it's really, really low. And so I said, oh my God, the bigger work here is raising people's ceilings, expanding their comfort zones.
Getting them a bigger bag. I saw this quote, and I don't remember where I saw it or who said it years ago, but it was, when you come holding out your bag of sugar to be filled with sugar, it will be examined to see how large it is. And it's essentially saying this, right? And it's like giving people that giant Halloween bag. We all know the kid that had the like trash bag. Like, you're giving people a trash bag, and I love that.
So that actually is kind of where my life work has been shifting into, and, teaching people, make something more, make something bigger. And that actually goes right back to like the first question you said, what do you do? I'm like, I make things, I make things and I explore things, and I try to do it as fearlessly as possible and teach everybody else how to also do the same thing, and reduce and eliminate all the suffering they possibly can in their life. I'm like the counter Buddhist, the opposite Buddhist. Instead of clearing my mind and not wanting things, I encourage people to want things and make things. And recognize that suffering is really the only thing that they fear. So how can they learn to make things and not fear suffering at the same time? That's the real trick to our reality.
Yeah, I love that. So good. So for people who are interested in connecting with you and possibly the Me School or just following your work, what is the best way for them to do that?
Oh, gosh. Okay. So first of all, my podcast, Flowdreaming, I'd love to see you guys come over and check it out and, subscribe or listen, whatever you want, leave a review. Next, of course, is my website, flowdreaming.com. And, Flowdreaming is with an F, by the way. It's not an S. Sometimes people think it's slow dreaming. I'm like, no, we are not slow. It's F, like Frank. And that's where I actually have a free kit where I teach people how to do the process. Again, I realize it's not something I can charge people to learn how to do it. Like, learning to do it should be free because it's something that we all should innately already know inside of ourselves. So this kit it's just got a couple of audios you can download and, some PDFs, a book, a little guide. And you can really just pick up this craft in like 45 minutes. At least the introduction to it. But then of course it requires you to just keep trying it and practicing it. And then last, if people are listening on mobile, I have an app. I have a couple apps. But in the app, you can also get the kit, and, it's just a really good place because you can play the flow dreams there and you can organize them into playlists. And the flow dreams themselves, they're not expensive. They're like $10 each. So it shouldn't be, something very expensive to go into. So I would say all of that. And then
very cool.
The very last bit is, I make myself available, to talk to potential students. I don't offload it onto my staff. It's really important to me that the people I work with for a year, I have to like. And I have to know, and I have to know that you're going to fit, and everyone else will like you, and then it's going to work for you. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it, So, people can call me and they can talk to me about Me School, and I will let them know you're ready for it, or this is perfect for you, or you're not ready for this, and, do these other things instead. So anybody who wants to talk to me about Me School, I'm always there and more than willing to do so.
Very, very cool. Well, I do have a couple of questions as we wind down here. And one of them, as the listeners know, I love to hear stories of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. And before you tell yours, I have one that ties into me and you being on the show and your mother and my grandmother that sort of transpired this morning. So
very cool.
Interestingly enough, I actually now remember your mother being a medium. So 3 years ago or so, when she was on the show back in the earlier days, she actually gave me a reading and spoke with my grandmother, who was like my second mother to me. I spent every weekend of my childhood at her house, and she just like a lot of. I think even one of the things she said in that reading, I had a couple since then, but that was the first time I'd ever connected with my grandmother in non-physical through your mother, right? And I believe it was in that one. It might have been there. I had a connection with her one other time later, and I can't remember which one. But she, it said that actually it said like I was her favorite because I'm the most like her of all her grandkids and things like that. So I rubbed that in my brother and sister's face. No, I didn't. But I am a lot like her. I mean, I could see that was a true statement. Like I'm the most like her. She's kind of very carefree and quirky and similar in a lot of ways. So that came through. But anyway, I've never had any direct connection with her myself. I have a lot of synchronicity and grounded, like magical things happen, but not a lot of like I'm communicating with non-physical entities kind of stuff. Like that hasn't been a part of my journey up to this point. So, psychic medium or communicating with someone who's dead hasn't really happened to me until this morning. And so I of course tied this together when this what I'm about to share with you happened. That I happened to be talking to you on the same day, and your mother originally brought my grandmother through to me for the first time. And so this morning I'm having a dream early in the morning, and my grandmother shows up in the dream, and I remember not necessarily thinking she was dead in the dream, but there was sort of a strange energy of, oh my gosh, I called her Moo. So Moo's here. Oh my gosh, this is strange. Like, and I gave her a big hug and like, look, everyone, like, whoa, she's here. Like, it's kind of like I hadn't seen her in a while, but I wasn't consciously aware that she was actually passed. Right. And so I hug her, and then she starts trying to speak to me, but it's garbly. It's like, and I'm like, what? Huh? I'm kind of like, like I can't quite understand you. Right. And so. And then, of course, now reflecting back, that was very symbolic of her trying to sort of communicate through the veil, at least how I interpret it, and my, not a clear connection. But as I came out of the dream and I went into that in-between awake-asleep state, and what's been happening to me lately for the first time really in the last 6 months or so, year or so, is from time to time, every month or so, I'm getting like sort of a message in that state, like someone is speaking to me and like, download information, if you will, like someone, spirit guides or whatever it is, talking to me, like just like you would talk to me. And in this case, it was, so I went from the dream with her to that state to her. And it was very, at the time it was just, I was very aware it was her speaking to me, right? That's just like a knowing. And it was like, and she said, take care of my boy. And then I woke up and it like kind of shook me awake. And it was kind of like how I took that is she's just kind of like saying, take care of yourself, and referring to me as her boy, which is kind of something she would have said. And I hadn't really thought of that. And I told my mom, she goes, oh, that's totally something she would say, And so that happened this morning, and I'm sitting there sharing this story. I had to call my mother and tell her, because my mother is like, I don't know why I never have an experience connecting with her, and I want to, and so I had to call her and tell her, Mom, guess what just happened to me. And as I'm telling her, and I'm like, hold on, the first time I ever communicated with her was with your mother, and I'm talking to you on the same day. And I was like, whoa, hold on. This is a really cool, kind of validation for me. So I wanted to just share that with you, and maybe you can share it with your mother. And, it was just very, very, very special and cool. And so, not to steal the magical story, but since it tied into you, I just wanted to share that with you and everyone else.
Oh, I think that's great. Because we were talking at the very beginning about myself and my mother and my grandmother and my great grandmother. I can just see how this is all tied into the same pattern, right? You're like,
so cool.
My mom and I, we're both, she calls it, I guess maybe she'll call it mediumship a little bit more than me. But for me, I'm always just looking at it like, you're a consciousness. You're in a body or you're not in a body, or you're in a body and also simultaneously not in a body.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter what physical mix is going on. If you're a consciousness, you're there and you're aware and you're available to talk to.
Right.
And you can call it living or dead, but that's just from a kind of human perspective.
Well, let me interject. I remember when she communicated with my grandmother, that was the first thing my grandmother said to her when she was talking to her, was she was like, are you in physical or not in physical? Like, my grandmother wasn't aware. It's like she rang her number and she, I remember your mom saying, oh, yes, dear, I'm actually here with your grandson. I'm in physical. I'm a friend of his, kind of thing. So it's interesting that you bring up that point.
Yeah, it's very true. And I know just from my own work too, when I will be looking at people and communicating with them, I can't tell whether they're alive or they're past. There's not a difference.
Right.
And sometimes the only difference that you see is that maybe they feel like a little otherly, and it's hard to pinpoint that. It's like they've expanded to something that my own consciousness isn't, it's so contained that it can't quite grasp it.
Right.
But they will always come meet me at my level. Let's put it that way.
Right.
And make themselves understandable to me, which means that I can't tell then if I'm just looking at a live person's mind or a dead person's mind, because it's just a mind.
Right.
And all minds are energy. That's it. All minds are energy. All minds are just collections of information, no matter where they're being stored, in the cloud or in a physical computer. Right. In a body or in the elsewhere and allwheres. So that's very cool about your grandmother. And it just makes sense to me. Just knowing the connection between myself and my mom and my grandmother.
Yes. I love it.
Oh, I love it. Me too. Shivers.
Do you...
Gosh, I don't know if I can top that one.
Yeah.
Man.
Well, we kind of share that one in a certain regard. So I would let you slide if you wanted to slide. But if you have anything that bubbles up, that's, I'm such a sucker for good stories. It's my favorite.
Yeah, God. I mean, I've had, like I said, my life has just been pocketed with them. I did a podcast a couple years ago. I said, I've had 3 miracles, and I ran through the whole podcast just describing the 3 times I almost died.
Wow.
And what happened to me. I had a lot of early interventions.
Really?
I'll just tell you, I'll tell you 2 right off the bat.
Okay.
My mom used to lecture. When I was young. She is a master herbalist as well. And so she would go and she would lecture at the Philosophical Library, which was like the local, woo-woo tavern in town. It was a bookstore, a metaphysical bookstore. And so I'd be there, a kid, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old, hanging out, waiting for mom to finish her lecture because, she wasn't going to leave me home. And they had one of those gravity, upside down, where you hang yourself upside down in the moon boots and you flip over and all the blood goes to your head. It was very big in the 70s. And I remember I strapped myself in, and this was in the back of, the classroom off to the side. My mom didn't see me. Nobody saw me. Everybody was facing the other way. I was just amusing myself for the 2 long hours. Strapped myself in, tipped myself over. Of course, these things are not meant for like little, 7, 8-year-old bodies. I slid right out. And I realized as I was heading down, I was heading right on my head and right on my neck.
Oh my God.
And I remember being turned in the air, and I landed on my feet, and it was like time stopped and time came back. And I stood there on my feet, and I just was like, what happened? What happened to me? This is ridiculous. I mean, and this is one of those weird things that it's almost such a weird story. It's not like something you just make up. I mean, it's just too weird, right? I told my mom, and she was like, oh my God, I am going to get you a babysitter. You're not safe here with me,
Wow.
But I remember having a really strong feeling that something was like, not your time. And then, a few years later, I was about, 13. And I was walking down, we were living with my grandparents at the time. My mom had just divorced. We lived in a little, it's a shack, actually. It was a tin roofed shack on their property. It did not come from expensive origins. And
expensive origins. I love that.
Yeah. I mean, talk about the rain hitting the roof. The rain would hit this tin roof at night. And it was like it was like pellets or bullets raining down. It was so loud. But anyway, it would get very icy, and I was walking down the front ramp because there was a ramp going down from it. And I had to walk down the ramp, and I had to walk out and walk a ways to the bus stop. And I was the first kid on the bus stop. It was a 2-hour bus ride, and little town, and it was so icy. And I set my foot on the ramp. It was 5:30 in the morning. I don't even know if my mom was up or she had gone back to bed. And I immediately went down, and it was like hitting brick, except I didn't hit. Because the same damn thing happened to me.
Wow,
I found myself at the bottom of the ramp, standing there. And it was like, again, time had stopped. Things, yes.
Wow.
I kid you not. And again, I thought, oh, not my turn. Not my turn. This is wild. And then I had a third experience, but I remembered these things again, too, when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I thought, how funny. They could have just prevented this the same way, too, couldn't they? And then I realized, but we all chose not to for some reason. This is really interesting. Yeah. Right. And so it just it made me realize all things for the reason. Find the pattern, find the rationale, decide who you're going to be inside of them. And, I guess that's my life story. Teach others to do this, be strong and clear and powerful as you can.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. Well, you have quite the life story, and I'm so pleased to have the, have the opportunity to connect with you and jump on your ride on this particular episode of the podcast. You have been so amazing, and I look forward to continue following your ride, and hopefully, we're not that far away, so I'm sure at some point we'll connect in 3D, and this has been absolutely amazing, Summer. I do have one final question I want to leave you with, though. Yeah. And that question is this: in 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Summer McStravick?
That's like one of those damn elevator questions you gave me in the beginning.
I like the super cliche, like hit him right between the eyes with it.
The meaning of life in 60 seconds? That's like a Monty Python movie. For those of you who catch it. Gosh, really, for me so far, it has been learning to trust and be fearless, decide who I want to be inside of every situation. And just knowing that you are never forced to feel any way, any particular way, any bad ways, any ways you don't want. And if you can draw that power back into you, you can create and make anything for yourself. And it's really just a matter of getting the right tools and techniques together, in your little toolbox of emotions. And you can craft and you can carve life like an ice sculpture. What is it you're looking for, and what do you choose to be inside anything you face? And then you go from being a victim to being the most ace and excited problem solver. Everything becomes just another delightful problem to solve, whether it's a scary thing or a fun thing. Yep. I mean, if you master that, just imagine not having fear or worry ever again. To me, that's solving the meaning of life.
You are an artist that has created solutions. Sorry, Dave, if I cut you off there. I thought you stopped.
I was just going to extend it out. Like, if you figure that out, then you become that inside of everyone else's life. So it's not just a selfish thing. It actually means that you have now changed all the people's lives around you too. Whatever you become, you become in other people's lives as well. So better damn work on what you're becoming.
Yes, I love it. Summer, you are such a amazing light to this world. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, Brandon. You've been wonderful.
Your summery light
host
on this podcast. I look forward to connecting again at some point. And until then, journey well, my friend.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. You've been delightful too.
Bye-bye. Well, everyone, that concludes this week's interview episode. Before we sign off, I wanted to let you all know that we have finally created the Game with the Universe on our website, where you can choose the first number that comes to your mind, and it'll pull up that episode number of the podcast. I've been saying this is a great way to co-create synchronicity and magic with your higher self for quite some time by doing this manually. But now if you go to positivehead.com/YO universe, there is a super fun and simple interface to play this game with your higher self. I firmly believe just by setting the intention to play in this way, it opens up the door for magic, and it's a synchronistic way to hone in on nuggets of wisdom out of the huge catalog of episodes that are specifically appropriate for you at this time in your journey to becoming the next greatest and grandest version of yourself. And it also makes for a super fun way to engage and invite friends, family, people on social media to check out the podcast as well. So be sure to check out positivehead.com/YOUNIVERSE and be sure to tell all your friends so they can play a game with the universe, which also helps the show to reach new people, which I greatly appreciate. And as a quick reminder, be sure to also check out positivehead.com/transformation if you're curious to learn more about Purium superfoods and why I take them every day. On this journey of becoming the next greatest and grandest version of ourselves that we have all embarked upon, I can't stress the importance of managing your physical vibration enough. And quite honestly, Purium has put together the simplest plan I've found to do so, and I'm sincerely excited to share it with all of you. Otherwise, as you continue on your fabulous journey in this 3D reality, be sure to remember this. As long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Journey well, everyone, and thank you for being.